Yeah, so today we're just going to practice these questions. So what does it say? Calcium reacts with water as shown. Okay. What is the total mass of the solution that remains when 40 grams of calcium reacts with 100 gram of water? Now, the first thing you need to understand about this is that mass doesn't change during a reaction. Law of conservation of mass tells us that the mass before a reaction is the same as mass after the reaction. Now, that means if you had 100 plus 40 in the beginning, you should have 140 at the end. But they're not asking about the total mass. They're asking about the total mass of the solution. So what is in the solution? This calcium hydroxide and anything that's left over from here. What is not in the solution? Hydrogen gas. Okay, so let's see. If you had calcium plus 2H2O making this thing, then what you need to figure out is which one is in excess. So you have 40 grams of this thing and you have 100 grams of this thing. 40 is 1 mole of calcium, but this is more than 5 moles of water. So clearly limiting reactant in this case is calcium because it has lower moles and it needs just 2 and water has much more. That means 1 mole of calcium is going to react. Now, when 1 mole calcium reacts, how much hydrogen is made? 1 mole. What is the mass of 1 mole hydrogen? 2 grams. So that means overall this was 140, but 2 gram left the solution. So you're left with 138. Ab 138 kiska hai? It is mass of this thing and the extra water that you have. So wo 140 minus 2, 138 grams at the end reh jayega. And that is what our answer is. So in general, if you have a question which they are asking about what's mass remaining, so if there is a gas, the gas will go away. Just calculate how much gas is made, and then you can easily remove it to find the mass. So iska answer C hoga. Okay, this question. Hydrogen reacts with oxygen as shown. How much gas will remain if 2 dm cube of hydrogen reacted with 1 dm cube of oxygen? Ab yahan par what you need to remember is that for gases, mole ratio is the same as volume ratio. So volume ratio is the same as mole ratio. That means that if you have 2 dm cube of hydrogen and 1 dm cube of oxygen, then moles kya hai? Moles ki ratio bhi 2 to 1 hai or volume ki ratio bhi 2 to 1 hai. That means if you had 2 moles of hydrogen, you'll get 2 mole of water. You have 2 dm cube of hydrogen, you will get 2 dm cube of steam. Okay? But that is steam. Equation hame bata rahi hai कि water is made as a liquid. So that means you're not going to get any gas left because these 2 dm cube will react with 1 dm cube. You don't have any gas left. So wo sare ke sare react karke water liquid bana dega. You don't have any gas left. So 0 is the answer. All right. So I have a few questions that I would like to solve with you, and the remaining I will share with you to solve. So these are all from past papers. Okay, so there's a whole story behind this question which is pretty irrelevant to our requirement. What's the question? The question is just this last part. You have the equation and you need to calculate mass of calcium hydroxide form, this thing, when 912 gram of this thing is available. Okay, so as I told you before, whenever you have a mole question, it's always going to ask about 2 things. One thing that you know of, which is this thing in this case, and one thing that you do not know of, which is this thing in this case. So you just have to figure out kiska kya पूछता है वो हमें इसका mass दे दिया उन्होंने और इसका mass पूछ रहा है हमसे. So we'll talk about the standard values. Equation tells us 2 for this and 3 for this. From the equation, if you notice, 3 here and 2 here. Now I'm going to talk about the standard values. What is 1 mole of this thing and its mass? So we'll take the MR of calcium silicate. I think it's silicate, Yeah, so MR kaise hoga iska? 3 times 40 for calcium plus silicon ka, I'll need a periodic table. Just give me a minute. Let me open it up. Yeah. So silicon is 28. So there is one silicon that's 28 and there's 5 oxygen. So 5 times 16, that comes out to be, that is 120 plus 28 plus 16 times 5, which is 80. So 228. So mass of 1 mole is 228 gram. So 2 moles ka 228 times 2 ho jayega. And the ratio tells us that 2 moles makes 3 of this. So iska kitna hoega? Iska MR dekh lete hain, 40 plus 2 times 16 plus 1, that is 74. Okay, so 74 gram. So that means 2 mole makes 3. So 2 times 228 will make 3 times 74. So this is your standard values. Okay. Second row is about given values. Okay. So what do we have? We have 912 gram of this and we want to figure out X of that. And now it's pretty simple. X is going to be 3 times 74 times 912 divided by 2 times 228, which comes out to be, so let's solve it, 3 times 74 times 912 divided by 2 times 228, that is 444. So 444 gram of calcium hydroxide is made. Okay, and you can give this same answer in your exam and you will get complete marks for this. लेकिन अगर आप स्टैंड जो ट्रेडिशनल मेथड है आप उससे सॉल्व करना चाहते हैं, आप ये मेरे वाले मेथड से नहीं सॉल्व करना चाहते, सो कोई मसला नहीं है, लेट्स सॉल्व इट थ्रू दैट. सो दैट मेथड rests on identifying 3 things. First of all, you copy the equation, ठीक है, plus what is that, 6H2O, yeah, 6H2O makes Ca3Si2O7.3H2O plus 3CaOH. Okay, so what the method relies on is that you have 912 gram of this and you want to figure out mass of this thing. So first figure out moles of this. So that's your first step. First step is always finding moles. So first step here would be moles of calcium silicate or whatever the name of this thing is. So it's going to be 912 divided by its MR, or wo humne calculate kiya hai, it's 228. So 912 divided by 228. So that is 912 divided by 228. That is 4. So you have 4 moles of this. Okay. Second step is always about finding moles of the other thing. So aap mole ratio dekhte ho. 2 moles make 3. So 2 makes 3. Mujhe kaise pata? I'm going to focus on this thing and this thing because that's what I'm interested in. So ignoring everything else, 2 makes 3. So 4 makes X. So X comes out to be 6 moles. So cross multiply and you'll know. Third step is finding the answer. So we have 6 moles of calcium hydroxide made. So that means you have mole equal mass over MR. So mole is 6, mass is unknown, and MR is 74. Okay. So M comes out to be 74 times 6, which we can easily calculate. 74 times 6 equals 444 grams. And that's our answer. 444 grams. That's your mass. So आप देखोगे कि either you use this method or you use this method, but both of them will give you the same answer. Now, what does this second method depend on? The second method basically talks about this thing that you have 2 compounds. There is the first compound and there's the second compound. You first find mole of the first one, use that to find mole of the second one, and then you find whatever answer you're looking for. वो mole है, वो mass है, वो volume है, वो number of particles है, वो सारे के सारे ऐसे आ जाए. ठीक है? So you find moles of the first one, then you find mole ratio to find moles of the second one, and then you use the formula to find whatever you need. और formulas क्या हैं आपके पास? You have 3 different formulas. Number of moles is mass over MR. Number of moles is particles over Avogadro number, which is this. Number of moles is volume over 24, but only for gases. And then number of moles is concentration times volume. So all 4 of these formulas combined with this technique, you can easily solve any mole questions. Or you could simply use this value, that you take the standard value, you take the given value, and you cross multiply to find whatever you're looking for. Potassium sulfate can be prepared by reaction between dilute sulfuric acid and potassium carbonate. Again, a story that we're not interested in. Calculate the mass of potassium sulfate that can be prepared from 3.45 grams of potassium carbonate. So question हमें क्या बता रहा है? H2SO4 reacts with K2CO3, makes whatever you need. Copy this. Okay. What are we focusing on? We have 3.45 grams of this thing available, and we're looking for mass of this thing. Okay. So इसका mass है, इसका mass निकालना है. Everything else we'll just ignore. So let's try to solve it through the traditional method. So traditional method depends on first finding out moles of the first thing. So this is your first thing and that's your second thing. Okay. So the first method is find the moles of the first thing. So number of moles is mass over MR. MR हमारे पास नहीं है, हम calculate कर लेते हैं. So MR is basically 2 times 39 for potassium plus 12 for carbon plus 3 times 16 for oxygen, and that is 138. So you have 3.45 divided by 138 to give you moles, which is 0.025. So हमें 0.025 mole K2CO3 available. Okay. Second step is finding moles of the other thing. So you have 1 mole of this makes 1 mole of that according to the equation, 1 here, 1 here. Everything else I'm ignoring. So 0.025, मुझे यहाँ पे calculation की जरूरत ही नहीं है. अगर 1 makes 1, so 0.025 makes 0.025. Okay, so I found moles of K2SO4. Third step is about finding whatever I need. So I needed to find mass. So again, number of moles is mass over MR. I don't have, so I can calculate. It is 2 times 39 for potassium, 31 for sulfur, 32 for sulfur, plus 16 times 4 for oxygen, and that is 174. So number of moles is 0.025. Mass is, I don't know, 174 is the MR. So mass comes out to be 174 times 0.025, which comes out to be 0.025 times 174, 4.35 grams. And that's my answer. Okay, there you go. So 3 steps and we're able to do it. Now, if I wanted to solve the other way, I will simply copy them. So K2CO3 and K2SO4, I have mass of this and I want mass of that. What are the standard values? So this is 1 times the MR of this thing. Because it's mass, so the standard value is the MR, which we calculated to be 138. 1 mole of this makes 1 mole of that. So 138 gram makes 174 grams. Okay. All right. So I have 3.45. So I will make X. So X comes out to be 174 times 3.45 divided by 138. So if you solve that, 174 times 3.45 divided by 138, and there you go. That is 4.35 grams. So you see, एक method ये है, एक method वो है. Both of them require us to calculate the standard values, the MR, and then you can easily figure out whatever you need. All right. So pretty standard. So this was mass and mass. Let's try to figure out what happens when you're trying to use mass to find energy. And this is a question that is typical to IGCSE and more recently to O levels. So let's see. क्या कह रहा है वो यहाँ पे? So methanol is manufactured from carbon dioxide and hydrogen. So you have the equation and the delta H is also given. In the reaction, when 3 moles of hydrogen react, 49 kilojoules of heat is released. Okay, so you can see that 3 moles of hydrogen do react and 49 kilojoules is the enthalpy change and it is negative. Negative means energy is being released. Calculate how much energy is released when 500 kg of hydrogen react. So ये बड़ा simple है. The ratio method is what we are going to look for. So we know 3 moles produce 49 kilojoules. So first figure out how many moles you have. So 500, number of moles is mass over MR. 500 kg means 500,000 divided by 2, which is the MR. So it is 250,000 moles. Okay, I did not write 3 zeros because K works for it. So agar 3 moles provide 49, so 250,000 moles will provide X. So X will come out to be 49 times 250,000 divided by 3. So that is 4.08 into 10 power 6 kilojoules of energy that is given off. Now, what happens if you have concentration? This is a question that requires us to use the concentration ideas. So let's see. Mass of iron 2 in a sample of fertilizer can be determined by this. Again, a story I'm not interested in. A student analyzed a sample of fertilizer, dissolved the sample in 25 cm cube of sulfuric acid. So you have sulfuric acid, which has 25 cm cube, and titrated the solution with 0.02 mole per dm cube potassium manganate. So you have KMnO4 and you have 0.02 mole per dm cube concentration of this. Student uses 22.5 cm cube of this. So you have the concentration, you have the volume, and here you have the volume only. Calculate number of moles of potassium manganate used. So we know the formula, N equals CV. For this one, we have the concentration, we have the volume, but the volume is in cm cube. So we divided by 1000 to figure it out in dm cube. So that is going to be 0.02 times 22.5 divided by 1000. That is 0.045 moles. So that's my answer. Number of moles is 0.045. So that's my answer. 1 mole of potassium manganate reacts with 5 moles of iron 2. So they have told us the ratio. 1 reacts with 5. Calculate mass of iron 2. So here's the thing. You have mole ratio. So there are two ways of doing this. One is you use the traditional method that you have 1 mole makes 5. So 0.045 moles. जो कि हमने यहाँ से निकाला है. It will make X. So X comes out to be 5 times 0.045, which is going to be 5 times 0.045. That is 0.225 moles. And once you have moles, you find the mass. So number of moles is mass over MR. In this case, it is AR because it's iron. So 0.225 equals mass over 56 for iron. So mass is going to be 56 times 0.225, giving me 12.6 gram iron 2 ions. So that's one method. The second method would be that I'm like, okay, I have KMnO4 on one side and I have iron 2 on the other side. I know the ratio 1 makes 5, but this is the ratio of moles. I have moles on one side, but this way I can also get mass on the other side. So 5 times AR, which is 56. So if I have, so that means 1 mole makes 5 times 56 grams of this. So मुझे directly mass मिल जाएगा. If I have 0.045, it will make X. And now I can cross multiply. X comes out to be 5 times 56 times 0.045, giving me 12.6 grams again. Okay, so that is when you are going to relate moles, concentration, and mass, all of it. So bada aasan hai that you're able to compare this all. Let's solve another way. Another question. First part is really easy. You have sodium oxide reacts with water to form sodium hydroxide. Write the equation. Equation मैंने यहाँ पे पहले से लिख दी है, so that it doesn't waste time. तो ये हमारे पास equation है. Next, they're saying 62 grams of sodium oxide are used to make 2 dm cube of sodium hydroxide. What's the concentration? Acha. So what do we need? We have two things: sodium oxide, and there's water, which is extra. We don't need to look about it. And then we have sodium hydroxide. What do we have? We have 62 grams of this and 2 dm cube of this. हमें इसकी concentration चाहिए. Concentration के लिए हमें volume और number of moles चाहिए. तो इसके number of moles तो हमें पता ही नहीं है. So let's try to figure that out first. Now, if we use the traditional method, then this is our substance number 1 and this is our substance number 2. And traditional method requires that you first find moles of the first substance. So number of moles is mass over MR, which is going to be 62 over 2 times 46 plus 16. Yeah. So that is going to be 1 mole. हम इसको solve करेंगे. 46 plus 16 is 62. So 62 divided by 62 is 1 mole. So you have 1 mole of this thing. Now the second step is finding moles of sodium hydroxide. So 1 mole makes 2 from the equation. हमें पता है 1 mole makes 2. So we have 1 mole, so it will make 2. I don't need to do any calculation. So मुझे पता है कि 2 moles बनेगी. So अगर मेरे पास number of moles 2 है, I want to find that. So number of moles is constant times volume. 2 is equal to C times 2, which is C is equal to 1 mole per dm cube. So that's a traditional method. If you were to use the method that I taught you, then you can simply copy these. So Na2O makes 2 NaOH. Okay. For this one, you want to figure out moles because it's a solution. You can only compare solutions, moles. And over here you have mass. So standard values dekh lete hain. 1 mole makes 2 of this. So 1 times 62, जो कि उसका MR है, makes 2 moles of this. Okay. So ये हमें कोई कैलकुलेशन की जरूरत ही नहीं, मुझे डायरेक्ट नजर आ रहा है कि 1 mole is 62 grams and I have 62 grams, तो मुझे 2 moles ही मिलेगा. So now I have moles. So number of moles is concentration times volume. Concentration is 2/2, giving me 1 mole per dm cube again. So मेरा आंसर वही आएगा. And that is what it's supposed to be. That doesn't matter what method you choose, your answer should be the same. Okay. Now, what if you have 2 different solutions? अगर आपके पास 2 solutions हो, तब हम कैसे reaction करते हैं? So the traditional method has given us a shortcut for it. So अगर आपके पास 2 solutions है ना, then the situation becomes really, really easy for you. All you need when you have 2 solutions is to use the formula CV over n of the first solution equals CV over n of the second solution. Okay, so the trick here is to identify what solutions you're talking about. Acha. So agar hum question ko padhe, we have calcium hydroxide, which is over here, and you have HCl, which is over here. Okay, so we are looking for one and the other. So hum ek ko calcium hydroxide bol dete hain, ek ko hum HCl bol dete hain. Okay, so let's plug in the values. What information do we have? We know that calcium hydroxide has 25 cm cube volume. So calcium hydroxide की volume होगी 25. Concentration नहीं पता. Number of moles हमें नहीं पता, लेकिन हम number of moles की ratio ले सकते हैं. So from the equation it is 1. Okay, for HCl we have the concentration 0.04. We have the volume 18, and the N is over here 2. Okay. So now you can easily solve this, and this gives us 0.04 times 18 over 2 times 25 gives me 0.04 times 18 divided by 2 times 25, and that is equal to 0.0144 mole per dm cube. The good thing about this method is that you don't need to convert cm cube to dm cube. क्यों? क्योंकि दोनों साइडों पे अगर cm cube होगा तो it will cancel out और हमें कोई issue नहीं. So that means if you have 2 solutions, then all you need to do is to use the shortcut. This formula CV over n of the first one is same as CV over n of the second one, and that makes things so much easier for us. Okay, so that is when you have 2 solutions reacting. अब हमने कर लिया solutions, masses, energy. एक और question जो हमें आता है, that is about volume of gas. So volume of gas, maybe you just need to remember the fact that number 1, mole ratio is the same as volume ratio for gases, and number 2, 1 mole of any gas requires 24 dm cube. Okay, so let's look at this question. Hydrazine is a liquid that has been used as rocket fuel. It reacts with oxygen as shown. Okay, calculate the volume of oxygen needed to completely combust 1 ton of hydrazine. Okay, so equation हमारे सामने है, N2H4 plus oxygen makes N2 plus 2H2O. Mole ratio is also given. हमें 1 ton of this is available, and we want to figure out the volume of this. So the traditional method requires us to find moles of N2H4. तो पहला step moles of N2H4 होगा. Number of moles is mass over MR. So we take number of moles is unknown. Mass is 1 ton, which is 10 power 6 grams. उसको zeros नहीं लगाने आपने. आप simply उसको देखो, 1 ton is a million grams. So 10 power 6. divided by MR of N2H4, which is 2 times 14 plus 4, which is going to be 10 power 6 divided by 32. Okay, I think that's the MR. That is 31,215 moles. So आपको moles मिल गए. अब आपको volume चाहिए दूसरे का. लेकिन the second step is always using the mole ratio. So 1 mole from the equation needs 1 mole of oxygen. So इसका मतलब है 31,250 will also need 31,250. ठीक है? So there you go. You have the same number of moles. अब हमें moles पता है. The traditional method requires us to find the third step is to find whatever you're looking for. So हमें पता है number of moles is volume over 24. So if I plug this in, 31,250 times 24, that will give me the volume. So volume is going to be 31250 times 24. That is 750,000 dm cube as my answer. You can give it like 7.5 into 10 power 5. वो भी ठीक होगा. So there you go. We have found it. If I wanted to use the other method, the ratio method that we have, so all I need to do is copy this. Okay. I have volume of this and I have what mass of this. Okay. So standard values 1:1. Standard values is 32 gram makes 24 dm cube. Okay. Okay. So that means 10 power 6 grams will make X. So there you go. X comes out to be 24 times 10 power 6 divided by 32. And that I know for sure is going to give us 750,000 dm cube. Okay. So that is when you have moles and ratios. Okay. All right. So that is the different kinds of moles question that we usually get in class. Thank you so much.